Unfortunately, 41% of our kids in America are growing up in a single-parent home.
Many of them lacking a father. What has happened to our fathers?
On this episode, we're going to be discussing the epidemic of fatherlessness in America.
I'm Donnie.
And I'm Tyler. This is the Course Correct Podcast.
This is such a vast topic, especially with so many kids that are affected in the everyday lives. And I think this is talking about this as people who were not fathers yet, not yet.
Not yet.
But I grew up with a father. I know you did as well. And so I don't know, just out of curiosity, did your dad have his dad around?
Yes, he grew up with his dad, and his dad was very strict disciplinarian. The actual spankings happened and belts were used, he said.
Nice.
So it was a little rough for him growing up for sure, but he definitely appreciated him and spoke to him later on in life before he passed, and
right.
He was there for sure and was a guiding influence to my dad, and same as my dad for me as well. And I've greatly appreciated it. It was nice just sitting outside with him the other night, just sitting about by a fire. It's really nice out right now, so we can have fires in Florida. It's amazing. Just talking to him about whatever, and just having a nice conversation with my dad, it really made me appreciate it's great to have a dad.
Yes, how fortunate we are.
Have a great dad too.
Right, to have our fathers in our lives. And it's not trying to lecture society about this, but this is an epidemic that is occurring right now. We have so many parents that just fathers that don't stick around for their kids, and that's just so irresponsible, and it's so detrimental ultimately to the family unit, which all leaks out into society. It's
so sad to see it happening every day. I feel for these people that these children and adults too, because your parents can leave you when you're an adult as well, and you can be affected by that even when you're 18. You're an adult officially here in America, but you can still be affected by that, not having your parents in your life as much. And that's if whatever you move away, you don't see your parents as often, but still, like, parents can be bad parents even when you're an adult. And I feel for those people, but not having a parent around from the beginning, where you only have a single parent or just a mother raising you with auntie and meemaw and grandma.
It's suboptimal. It doesn't produce the environment that is conducive for the child to be effective later down the road. And I'm not saying that if you grew up in a single parent home, you're a failure. I don't know about you, but I know personally people who grew up without a father, but they still had male role model figures in their life, whether it be a coach or a teacher or their neighbor who was really cool. I mean, it's very important to have a role model in your life. And then when the fathers are not sticking around for the kids and being an influence in their life, it leaks out into the rest of society. It really affects a lot of kids negatively. My father, he didn't really have his dad was around. He was always just kind of out and about, not quite in my father's life. And he got in some trouble at a young age, and that kind of bears with that aligns with the statistics of it, about how it affects the kids negatively, which we'll get into momentarily. But I saw that, with my dad growing up, he did a lot of terrible things at a young age, but he decided to say, you know what, I'm going to make a difference for my family, and I'm going to turn my life around and commit to this woman and be there for my kids.
He broke the cycle. He
Correct.
Decided not
Change
to.
Agent.
Yes, he didn't want to perpetuate the cycle of terrible fathers making children and the rest of society deal with all these issues. I'm glad that happened for your father, and I'm glad for the people that decided to step out of this perpetual terrible cycle that we see a lot of people in today.
Right. And so with this as a problem mainly in America, like when you look at like China, I think they're at about 3%, India is like 4%, Nigeria 5%, but then America it's 41%.
That's amazing.
That's staggering.
I can't believe that it's America that has the worst problem.
Yeah, it's kind of like, why and how? How do we allow our nation to just slowly crumble and have the family unit destroyed? And we're going to get into that momentarily and when we cover the past. But ultimately we need our kids to have their fathers. Because when you look at what happens to the kids, for the boys, they're 4.6 times more likely to commit suicide. They're 15 times more likely to have behavioral disorders, 15 times more likely to end up in prison, 24 times more likely to run away. And then there's always the 5 Ds. They say if you come from a single parent home, it raises your chances for the ability for more drinking, more drugs, defiance, disrespect, and delinquency. And once again, we're not blanketing everybody to say, if you grew up in a single parent home, you're a terrible person. That's not what we're saying. But what we're saying is we need to have a conversation about how do we get our men to stay around, to be men again.
Yes. Society needs to recognize that we need fathers to be in the home with a mother. That's that nuclear family that has kind of gone by the wayside. It's disheartening to see that happening every day. I'm very troubled by that. A father is just by those statistics alone that you mentioned there, it shows how important the father is, setting the right standards for children, being that role model for the correct behavior, and how to treat men and women.
Correct. Because it's not just the boys that get affected. Females get affected just as equally. They're 53% more likely to get married as a teenager, 111% more likely to have a child as a teen, 164% more likely to have a child out of wedlock, 92% more likely to get divorced. So it affects both young boys and girls negatively when there is an absent parent. And so it's so crucial that we have this conversation. I hope we can bring in, some statistics and enlightenment to our audience to say, hey, yeah, I didn't know about this, and maybe I should encourage others to be a mentor or a role model in somebody's lives, because as an educator, I've seen some of my students come from broken homes, and my heart hurts for them so bad, and I wish I could do more for them, because they I hate to see that they're missing out on their father.
And we as a society need to recognize this problem and say, all right, how are we going to fix it? And I think it really comes down to, we need to recognize where it came from. Where did it start? I'm curious. I kind of have a good idea, but where did this begin? Can we draw back to a specific time where this began?
Well, so it's interesting because all through our American history, it was pretty steady. And so for the most part, people had stayed together. And so and this matters also by the ethnicity. So when you look at the rates of fathers in the white community, in 1960, they were 5% gone. Up through 1980, 18%, 2000, 33%, 2015, it was 41%. I got that wrong. Let me correct that. 1965 it was 5%. Today it's 25%. I'm looking at the wrong stuff.
That's still a staggering.
That's still, yes.
For just for the white community alone, it doesn't affect just the white community or black community or Latino, Asian community, anybody.
It doesn't matter. Our kids need parents, both mom and dad. And when you take away one or the other, there's something lacking in their lives.
It sounds like it's not a race issue; it's more of a cultural.
Yes.
As a whole.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. Because a certain culture, certain people may do it more than others, and so then that needs to be looked at and say, well, how do we fix that? Because currently the black community started in 1960 with 25% to currently it's at 73%, and the Hispanic community was at 24% in 1980 to 53% today. And so, I was reading up Walter, I forgot his name, Walter Williams. Rest in peace, by the way.
Just passed away recently.
Just passed away. Great economist. He was looking at the rates of marriage and during slavery, and his studies showed that the black community had higher rates of marriage and slavery than they do today, and that is mind blowing to me. And that's something that I
can't believe that statistic on itself alone.
It's sad.
It seems like that would be completely the opposite.
Right, it should be the opposite.
Right.
But that was Walter Williams, and he found that by many years of looking at over 60 years of evidence, because he was like a lifelong economist, and so pretty interesting how it affected different groups disproportionately. But really, I think the crux of where we get at for fatherlessness in America, I think it really begins with LBJ's The War on Poverty.
Yeah, the Great Society, The War on Poverty, all these programs that started, what was it, 1965?
It's about 1965.
Yeah.
So
a year after the Civil Rights Act was passed. So
right. Because poverty
that's where it began. Yeah.
Poverty in 1949 was at 34%, and then it declined to 1964 to 17%, but then it just remained stagnant. It just didn't rise, didn't fall. It just kind of remained the same for up until today. Yet we spent $20 trillion on it. So if you ask me, I think that's a failed war. Apparently throwing money at the issue is not going to solve it. Most people who are on welfare are single parents, and I think the issue lies that the government is incentivizing and subsidizing fatherlessness and single parent homes.
I was going to ask, is it because they're allowing it, whether it's through tax breaks for having more children, is what is driving this problem to be more prevalent? And since 1965, really, I mean, what we had the numbers that I guess it doesn't start really till the 70s. Does it start shooting up even more?
Yes. Well, ever since the war on poverty begins, you have fatherlessness increasing with it. And it's like, okay, well, we're throwing money at this issue, but what we're really doing is we're subsidizing undesirable behavior. And when you do that, you only beget more undesirable behavior. And so it's just not a very optimal way to live, and especially in a civilization that understands the importance of the nuclear family. And we have got to have our families stick together. So ultimately, it leaks out into the community, and so we're stronger communities.
So we're saying that a throwing money at a societal problem that where individuals should make the decision to not do these things, to not have children out of wedlock with multiple partners in many cases. Obviously that is what's caused this issue. Throwing money at problems doesn't necessarily make it work. Or fix it and correct it in the long term. We have to sit here and say, hey, what is the problem? Recognize it, and how do we correct it? That's like seeing those statistics, and the $20 trillion that we're throwing at it, like that doesn't strike me as of an effective way of fixing this problem.
We should not be encouraging women to marry the government. That is so abhorrent to me. It should be. Men need to stick by their women, and when they create children, they need to be there to bear the responsibility. And it's also it'd be a win-win for everybody involved, because the child now has better conditions for staying out of jail, for not acting out in school, for having the structure that a child needs in their lives. And believe it or not, having children prolongs a parent's life. This is just a great thing. When you have a kid and you're responsible for it, you are going to fight harder. You are going to work longer, so that way your progeny is ultimately going to succeed. And so we just need to stop marrying our women to the government, and the government needs to butt out and stop playing caretaker for everybody. So but do we want that responsibility? That's the whole thing.
Right. I mean, responsibility requires some sacrifices.
This is true.
Your time. Yeah.
Yeah. This is very true. And so I really think that's where it comes from, is just with LBJ's war on poverty. It just eventually just says, you know what? We're going to take care of you. So what's the incentive for the men to stick around then? Well, I mean, my child's going to get taken care of by the government. And actually, every time they have a child, they just get more money. So that's backwards. But it's interesting because even Barack Obama noticed it. And I want to quote what he had said. He had said, we all know these statistics, that children who grow up without a father are 5 times more likely to live in poverty and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in prison. So I think it doesn't matter that this is, we don't even have to be divided on this issue between left and right.
It's not a left-right issue.
This is a, we need to come together as a nation and say, hey, we have to, review how we're doing this and de-incentivize the welfare to single parents, especially single mothers. And I just want to say this because I've heard this a lot lately in the culture. It's all like, well, I don't need a man. Okay, yeah, you don't need a man, but wouldn't it make your life easier when you have another income? When you have somebody to help with your children, somebody to discipline your children if you don't want to discipline them. I mean, this is absurd to say.
Somebody to take out the trash for you.
Yeah, that too. But it's just to say, single parenthood. Because I was looking up some as I was researching this, that a lot of people were trying to give me the pro side of it, saying, "Oh, this is a good thing." There's benefits to living in a single parent home. They say like, "Oh, the bond's stronger." It's like, well, no kidding.
Oh yes,
no kidding.
Your bond's going to be stronger with other people too. With grandma and auntie, as I said earlier. I'm curious like how that works. Just a single parent. How does that make it more effective? raising of a child, just one.
Well, I'm not saying that every guy is upstanding. I mean, that's not true. There's tons of dirtbags out there who will impregnate somebody and then just not be a very good father. But once again, if you don't have a father in your life, you need to find somebody who's going to mentor you and who's going to help shape you and kind of guide you, because men and women are different. And
they're absolutely different. Yes.
There's a pro side to having both in the house at the same time.
A mother raises a child differently than a father.
This is true.
But they work together too. That's having these two different ways of parenting works well. It works in concert, and it helps shape children and helps them, learn these different lessons throughout life and how to deal with these adverse situations.
So you don't go to your father when you want to talk about your emotions? We just don't do that. I mean, as somebody who grew up with parents, I would never call my father, be like, hey, I'm working. Psh. I'm not saying he wouldn't be there, but, generally when certain things I go to my mom for, right? When I want to talk about certain things, but then there's certain things I just need to talk to my dad about. And so having that yin yang Taoism, if you will, of the balance of order and chaos, it's so that just makes the conditions for a child to grow up and be more successful. Just like family dinner. If you have family dinner X amount of times per week, you'll see better grades in school. You will see less acting out in school. You will see a healthier individual. It's just all around. We have to commit as a society to say what's right for our kids, what's best for our kids, and let's make sure that we take those steps and de-incentivize single parent homes, because I think that's the reason why we have it in America. Our government says, we'll take care of you. And then that's why poverty has remained the same.
Yeah, there's no incentive to get out of it. They're kind of stuck in this perpetual loop, and it just keeps going, and it leads. I was listening to some of interview with one individual that was just saying that not having that father figure in these young children's life, they would seek it out in other ways, in destructive ways, and falling in with gangs and falling in with these violent methods of attaining and trying to take care of your mom too. A lot of professional athletes, one of their first things they do when they if they get drafted and they sign a really huge contract, they want to take care of their mom first, because they fought their entire life to get mom, to take care of mom. That thank you mom for helping me out, and there's no father. That that's so disappointing to see that the father wasn't there to guide them. And there's a lot of people that break out of that, and there's that we see on TV that are successful with the NBA, NFL.
It's just harder. It's just a little bit harder.
Difficult, yes.
And my thing is somebody who likes being around kids and loves to see them develop and seeing their potential. And why would you want them to have a harder life? Let's make sure we're doing everything in our power to make sure that we're producing the conditions that are going to help them succeed rather than struggle. And that was interesting that you said that about they joined gangs, because Tupac had talked about that. That's why he joined a gang, because he needed structure and he needed to be with other guys.
A community of men. It shows how important men are, and not just women. Women are great, and women have, especially as mothers, they have this great utility to them. But having that father figure is important to young men, especially growing up. And that's why they fall in with these horrible gangs that commit these terrible atrocities we see in Chicago, all this violence that happens. And it's just I wonder if these people committing these crimes had a father in their household saying, no, that's wrong, you don't go out and you don't shoot people and you don't steal from people, and you don't attack someone because they have more drugs than you, and you want to get involved in that. They're going to say, no, that's wrong, because that's a dead end. That's a horrible way to live. And fathers are the ones that are going to be able to really hammer that point home, that no, it's being a man is being responsible for yourself and taking care of others that you care about.
Yes, and having that structure and discipline, right, that a lot of men bring to the table to show the way, right? And so it's in Chicago, when you have more people dying there than when we were in the Iraq or Afghanistan war, there's something to be said about that. And so, a lot of times these young men, if they don't have a father in their life, what happens is they have to find their allegiance go somewhere. And let's be honest, a lot of times when the young men or the females are growing up with just mom, they tend to resent females over time. To say, I don't want to be around you. So then they'll find other allegiances, whether it be their friends or, like you said, gang affiliations, and it's just those people don't have your best interest. But if the father sticks around, they will have the best interest, because in fact they're giving pieces of themselves to that child to better them, to say, hey, this is what you do and this is what you don't do, and learn from me. And so that way you can have a better life. And that's why I'm so grateful for my father, because that's exactly what he did. He turned his life around and said, you know what, I'm going to do better, so that way my kids can have a better chance. And he's one of those stories. And so, you need to be a mentor to somebody, but you also should find a mentor. And I think that's really important for our young men to do. And
absolutely.
Women.
Yes. They should be looking for, I played football, I coached football. Those are great mentors that are available out there. There's so many people that are willing to help young men grow up. Even if you don't have a father, you can find a father figure on football team, basketball, baseball team. These coaches that they're teaching life lessons through adversity too. And we don't want, and I think you said earlier, we don't want kids' lives to be difficult. We don't want it to be difficult where they have to scratch and claw for everything. But adversity matters,
Mm-hmm.
and growing up, and men and fathers, they help young children. They shepherd them through that adversity by throwing them to the wolves at sometimes. And like in football, we throw you in, say, hey, you're just going to go out there and you're going to learn how to tackle and you're going to learn how to block, and you need to figure it out, at some times. And then we'll be here to support you, but they're not gonna baby you along. That the nurturing aspect is a little bit less than mothers.
Right. And so you might be listening to this and say, well, I grew up in a single parent home. My dad was never around, and I'm okay. And I think that's wonderful. And I'm not ragging on anybody who grew up in a single parent home, whether their father left or maybe their father passed away, which is heartbreaking. But we want to make sure that we are trying to always push our kids in the right direction, and the best way for them to have a good chance at a life is having both parents around. So we can either keep going down this path and incentivizing our fathers leaving, or we can try to start saying, hey, you guys need to bear your responsibility and be a father. And it only makes them more mature in the end. At least we hope.
Yeah, men need to step up, stick around, do not leave. If you impregnate a woman, you need to stay with them.
That's it.
Don't leave. It's so disheartening to see all these things going on. It's like you have to be there for somebody in that situation where it's like, now you have to take care of a child. It's not just you shouldn't just be paying child support. You need to be there for that child. And it's not we're not living in a perfect world. People are not going to get along. Couples are going to break up. They're going to get divorced. But be there. Be that important figure for that child. If it's a girl or boy, you need to be there for, if you have visitation and all these different things that are going on, you need to, not just be, I'm just going to hand out money to them left and right and just give them whatever they want. Be a parent, be an adult for them, be somebody that they can look up to, the proper role model. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's very important that we have those fathers in our lives. And so I just hope that we as a society, we can come together and just realize that if we continue down this path, it's only going to cause more brokenness. It's only going to cause more kids that are going to commit more crimes, end up in jail, and that's something that's not the best option. So you're right. We live in a broken world, and there's going to be mistakes made that, oh man, I got this girl pregnant, and so now so then give the child up for adoption. If you can't be there, then give it to a couple who are going to take that kid and raise them. And if you don't, and here's some other advice, if you don't want a kid, then maybe you shouldn't be having sex outside of wedlock. And so,
make responsible
decisions. How about that? And so, that's hard to tell society to do that.
If you're bored, get cable.
Well,
yeah, watch Netflix or just play video games. Find an outlet for any of this. It's so difficult.
There's 3 things that need to occur for anybody to stay out of poverty, and it's very simple. It's 1, finish high school; 2, get a job; and 3, wait until you're married to have kids. And so when we look at this and we say a lot of our young ladies are having kids outside of wedlock, and because there's a single parent home, well, I think what it does is it just creates a generational poverty for these families, and that's just no way to live. And we care about this country. We care about everybody who's suffering, and so
Yes.
we're not trying to lecture anybody. We're just saying, look, when you look at the statistics, you can say that, well, I don't need a man or I don't need a wife and I can do this on my own. But really, why would you want that? Like, have the other side of you that complements you, that's going to see your blind spots, that's going to take care of the child in a different way than you could.
Yes, because you're one person, and time is a luxury. Time is you only have 24 hours in a day. It's hard to do everything that two people to do. That's
oh my gosh.
That's why you need to have a mother and a father to help split up the duties, help take care of drop one off at daycare, drop one off at sports practice, or pick one up at this time. It's so difficult to do, and I feel for all those single mothers out there, and the single fathers too. There's plenty of them out there that have to go through this.
And then they're working all these extra hours, and then how much time do you honestly have for your kid? And it's just like
it can be meaningful and effective time with your child if you're a single mother, a single father. That's hard to see too. It's like how much is being lost. How much time is being lost. How much things lessons that can be learned.
Space. We got a little glimpse of space, everybody. Yeah.
Yes.
It's just, listen, the world's not perfect. We're not perfect. We're not going to sit here and give it parenting advice because we're not parents. But when we look at our country and we see, wow, okay, this is starting to spill out into society. And we have like literally generational poverty for a lot of groups of people. Well, something has to be done. And so we just hope to shed some light on this issue and just hopefully give our audience something to think about and to like say, hey,
yes, we need to address it. It needs to be a conversation that everyone has. Doesn't matter what your race or what your orientation or what your political beliefs, whoever you voted for in this last election.
That doesn't matter. What matters is, are we going to be there for our kids? And I just want to say this as well. It's a lot of things that go around. People say this all the time. It takes a village to raise a child. No, it doesn't. It takes two good parents. If you want that child to be successful, it takes two good parents.
And that's solid parents.
I'm sorry, let me just take that back. Not even good parents. Two parents that are willing to stay together for that child and just try to give it its best opportunity at success.
That are solid. They're committed to those children.
No parents are that perfect. Nobody's perfect.
Yes.
But we need parents that are going to take their responsibility and say, you know what, I did not want to father a kid, but this is my reality. So I'm either going to give it up for adoption or I'm going to stay with my kid and I'm going to love it and show exactly how to do life. And so if you don't have a father, find a mentor or a father figure. If you don't have a mother, find a mother figure in your life. But we're just making this about fathers because what we've noticed in our research is it's mainly the fathers who are leaving.
Exactly.
Shame on them. And if you're listening to this and you've fathered a child and you haven't been there for them, it's never too late. It's never too late to go back into your kid's life. They may not be happy right off the bat, but it's never too late to make things right, to try to influence your progeny in the right direction. So that way they have a better chance at living a successful life with their fathers intact.
And I want to definitely just shout out to end a little positively. Shout out the great fathers out there, all of them throughout history, our fathers, and the great father figures that are out there, because you don't have to be actual biological father to be a father figure to somebody.
Yeah. You've known me for a while. I've always wanted to adopt because I just listen. If you don't want to be there for the kid, and I'd much rather if just instead of a single parent home, because me and my future wife will raise the kid because I'll love the kid even though it's not my own. I care about kids. I just want to give them an opportunity at success and also mess with them. I like messing with kids.
Yeah, have some fun.
It's positive. It's fun.
Yes.
You gotta have fun with your kids. Just like tell them like if you eat gum, it's gonna make your feet webbed and that type of stuff. Really? You already swallowed it, dude? Yeah. You're gonna have webbed feet, man. I think that'd be a lot of fun. But like you said, shout out to all the fathers. Like seriously, to all the fathers out there, you guys are amazing and you have made such a difference. And I hope that we have encouraged you to, dig deep into being that positive role model and maybe find somebody that you can be a role model for. And I appreciate my father. I love you to death. You are so important to me, as well as my mother. But just thank you, Dad, for being a part of my life, and you've affected me in such a positive way. So thank you.
Man, it was great yesterday spending time with my dad on his birthday. I love my dad very much. He's been an amazing influence. He's taught me so much. He's been such a great mentor to me. I've learned so many things, and I'm very appreciative of my father and all the great fathers that are out there and father figures.
Yep. So yeah, I think that's about it. I mean, we could go more into the statistics, but we should just keep this bare bones. We see a problem in society. It's very unique to America. It is an epidemic. And if we don't want to bring light to it and we don't start talking about it more as a nation, it's only going to further fissure the nuclear family and get worse. And so it's never too late. It's never too late to be a good dad and just to make changes. And so we hope to have encouraged people to maybe look into the research themselves and say, hey, gotta try to educate myself on this.
Let's recognize the problem and try to fix it.
That's
going
it.
Forward for sure.
This is what it's all about. Talk about problems to see if we can fix it, because if we don't fix these problems as Americans, we're not gonna make it. So that's about all we got for you this week. We hope you enjoyed it. We are going to come back next week for an awesome topic that's going to kind of piggyback off of this. So we're not going to tell you what it is, but you got to stay tuned. So
thank you very much for watching. This is the Course Correct podcast.